Hello, and welcome to my presentation of Contemporary Family Dynamics. My name is Monica de Dios, and I will be presenting all the areas of different family dynamics, their strengths, their weaknesses, and some recommendations for teachers and educators in working with these specific families. I would first like to go over a quick introduction of what these family dynamics and family structures are, what they look like here in the United States specifically, and how they've evolved over time and why they're important. So the demographic of the United States has changed dramatically since World War II, with the idea of the nuclear family was adopted. So during or at the end of World War II, this idea of a nuclear family, which consisted of a mom, a dad, and a child or two, so usually two siblings, living in the home. The parents are married. That was considered the ideal or the nuclear family here in the United States. In the 2010 Census Bureau, the definition of family was compared to the household. So this looks specifically at what is labeled as family, what is labeled as a household. So in the 2010 Census Bureau, a family was labeled as a group of two or more people who reside together and who are related by birth, marriage, or adoption. And then they described a household as all people who occupy a housing unit as their usual place of residence. So a family has more connections, either legally or biologically, where a household is just a collection of people living in a same resident or unit together. So diverse family dynamics. These family dynamics be diverse by races, religions, and etc. So today in American families, we have seen this change and shift from your nuclear family of cis hetero white individuals to now a dynamic family structures that vary vastly. So we see same-sex couples or queer couples. We see grandparents raising their children's children or other children. We see single families a lot. We've seen a lot of research for that. The growing numbers of single family homes led by the father. So now going from a different view of single parents mainly being moms with their children to now seeing that it's now also dads with their children as well. So the family structure can be very different in every family. The family tree can look vastly different. This is just an example of what it could look like. Like I mentioned earlier, the nuclear family was the ideal here in the United States, with a mom, a dad, and then their children, where the parents are married and they're they're a cis heterosexual couple. So here is just an example of many of the things different scenarios and relationships we'll talk about, of either a single parent or a two-parent led household with dual incomes or only one income, having biological children, adoptive children, foster children, children that they're raising from either their siblings or other family members as well. So first we will discuss the nuclear family, their strengths, challenges, and recommendations. So the nuclear family is a father, a mother, and their children, who are their biological children that they've had through a marriage usually, and they're cis heterosexual couple. So the strengths that they have is about 22% of households in the United States are still considered nuclear families. Nuclear families tend to lead to more positive outcomes. Children tend to end up in having higher educational attainment compared to other family dynamics. So the support that children are receiving in these families tend to impact their education. Dual income families tend to lead to extracurricular activities. So when you have this nuclear family where you have two parents in the household with dual incomes, with both parents working, these children tend to have more benefits and access to extracurricular activities like sports such as soccer or football, also music lessons, as well as any other extracurricular activities that their children are maybe interested in. Some challenges that a nuclear family faces is they tend to focus on the family unit exclusively. So in nuclear families, we see this trend in which the family bonds very closely get together, and when there's conflict within the family, it can be very difficult to solve. as well as if there's outside conflict. It's hard for them to see the other point of view or from the outside point of view of their family dynamic. They tend to lean more with their family. Another challenge is both parents are working, which means that it's difficult to balance work-life schedules. So having both parents work, spend most of their day at work, they don't have a lot of time after work to come home to help the children with homework or extracurricular activities, along with the housework and making dinner and everything that needs to be done in the household. Changes in life can cause changes in family dynamics. So they could be experiencing a divorce, a hardship, unemployment from a parent, illness, or a death in the family. That can change this dynamic and cause a rift in the family. Some recommendations for educators and teachers when working with a nuclear family is to send at-home activities or talking points to share with the family when they do have time to spend together. So at-home activities that they can either work on together, as well as what I call talking points over the dinner table, was just ideas or prompts and questions that you can ask the children while having dinner together or just sharing time together, to start a conversation, have them open up and share about how their day was. You can also build strong communication networks between educators and families, and then families with other families. So making sure there's a close communication between educators and families to make sure that the communication is consistent and there's no misunderstandings, and also build those connections amongst other families so they have a support within themselves, to help each other and have each other to lean on. Schools and educators to have flexible schedules to meet these parents' needs due to their work schedule. So we know that during the school day, it's going to be hard for parents to meet for a conference or a parent-teacher conference or a PTA meeting. So having that time set aside in which you know that these families will be able to attend these meetings that are important to you and important to them as well. That they're not missing it because they want to miss it or are uninterested, but because they are unable to miss work. So being able to work with these families to make sure that you are flexible with your schedule and the educator's schedule, to meet these families' needs, and be able to see if they would work either in person or even online forms, like Zoom is a growing trend now, to help parents and educators build that better connection outside of the classroom. The second family structure is the single parent family structure. So this is a single parent led household, and it historically in the past it was mainly mothers. The courts and judges would rule custody of children with mothers, as they were seen more fit, caring, nurturing for children compared to the fathers. Nowadays, we're seeing more of an increase in single parent led households that are led by the father. So judges are now siding with the father rights as well, that they are also seen as fit parents to raise, care, and nurture their children. So some single parent strengths, household strengths, are causes of single parenthood has changed drastically. So as mentioned, historically before, women would be the lead parent in a single parent household. Back in the early 1800s, through late 1900s, was due because they would become widow, because their husbands would become ill and die. So a lot of these families were left without a father figure or without the dad involved due to an illness, and then passing away. So mothers were responsible for the household. Now, present day, we see that there's still a high level of single parent households, but now we're seeing that it's due to divorce. So it's not due to illness or death of one of the spouses or one of the parents, but due to parents deciding to divorce or no longer parent together in the same household. We're also seeing an increase in women choosing to have children without marriage. So women making the choice to have children on their own time, whether they're married or not, whether it's with their partner. There's also evidence of in vitro fertilization for sperm donors that they have. More research can be done on that, but in specifically when working with families, you'll see that maybe more single parent households are women, is because they're choosing not to be married but still having children. There's also an increased number of single-parent households that are being led by the father, as mentioned before. So that's good. We're seeing that both parents are being responsible. It's not just falling on the mother anymore. Some challenges that they face are their overwhelming schedules again. So with working, maintaining the household, children's needs, and schooling. So all this responsibility of their child's needs and responsibility, along with their own needs and responsibilities, are all falling within the parent themselves. So managing everyone's schedule, making sure everyone's taken care of with all the responsibilities still that need to be done in the household. There's, of course, a strain financially when there's only one income coming in a household, whether it be a two parent or two family household where it's just a parent and the child, or it could be more people. It would be a financial strain for the parent to be living on their own with only one income coming in. It's also a challenge for these parents to find reliable and local support, so either being a reliable daycare or childcare center, which they are able to afford, again, with that financial strain, or having local support, so having family nearby in which they are able to help with a child in case an emergency or they become ill and the child can't go to school. Some recommendations when working with single parent families is to form relationships with other families for support and inclusion. So again, building that strong relationship among in your classroom amongst these families to support each other and know that they're not alone in their support in which you can help them with. Reduce classroom wish lists. So again, leaning more on that financial strain. Reducing classroom wish lists where parents are constantly being asked for donations in the classroom for certain things. This may cause some parents that can't afford it guilt. They feel like they're not participating enough in their child's education and that they can be doing more, but unfortunately, due to their circumstances, they're unable to. So they may feel embarrassed or even judge that they, other families might think that they are not contributing to the classroom. Collaborating with families to provide extra support for children, so providing those before and after school to see what works best with families, working with other families to see if they can provide after school care, carpooling, working together, study groups, and things like that. Pictures and videos taken throughout the day for the parents to see. So these parents are very busy and it's hard for them to be able to attend certain events or be able to catch up on their child's schooling to see what they're up to, what they're doing at school at the time. So educators being able to provide pictures or videos in which they can share with these parents so they can be more involved and see what the child is doing within the classroom. Next, we'll be talking about the grandparent family structure. So this structure looks like grandparents raising their grandchildren, or raising small children, or having their children returned back into the household with their children for financial support or support in childcare as well. So some strengths that we see in this family dynamic are that they're trusted and reliable. So parents know where their child is staying, who they're with. It's reliable adults. They're their parents. They understand the raising abilities and how they would raise their children, kind of the rules and regulations they have there. It's a place where it feels at home, but also very secure. So their funds of knowledge as well is from the next generation. So they'll have funds of knowledge from the grandparents, as well as funds of knowledge from the parents, which come from the grandparents. So it's this continuation of these funds of knowledge, seeing where it came from, and grandparents are being able to teach their grandkids this information the same way they did their own children. So there's creation of subfamilies. So these subfamilies, like as mentioned before, a specific one is a child moves out of the household and then moves back into the household, their parents' household with their own child. That's a subfamily where the grandparents are still the head of the household, but now their child and their grandchild is living with them. It also provides before and after school care. So grandparents, usually we have the idea that grandparents tend to be older and retired, so they tend to be at home most of the time. They're able to provide before and after school care. So being in the home available as parents go to work in the morning or coming home from work in the afternoon, someone is at home with the child. They're not home alone. Some challenges this group faces is financial hardship and strain. So again, the idea of grandparents tend to be that they're older, they're retired, they're no longer working, no longer have a big monthly income coming in aside from financial help from the government. So some financial strains there would be hard for them. Also, along the line would be physical and emotional toll. So grandparents tend to be older. The older generation, they're not as mobile. Their physical health is not the same. Raising a young child at this age is also a strong emotional toll. Raising children as a whole is a strong emotional toll, but as you get older, with the older age, it becomes more difficult to help raise children and to be patient and regulate your own emotions as well. So the communication primarily in person or traditional written forms. So the challenge with this one is a lot of grandparents tend to be quote unquote old school. So having the majority of their communication come from either verbal face to face conversations or written notices, like official letters or newsletters that they're able to see and physically hold. So it's a little harder to communicate with them if they're not tech savvy, as it is nowadays. So being able to use like messengers or a quick text, or Class Dojo or any other classroom apps that may be difficult for them to maneuver through. Also navigating medical and school records. So again, if grandparents are not legal guardians or adoptive guardians of the child, it'd be difficult for them to help navigate medical or school records since they have no legal rights, unless parent is there or given specific authorization to do so. So that may make that also as a toll makes it harder for grandparents to help their grandchildren to ensure that their medical needs are taken care of and their school records are also taken care of. Some recommendations for these grandparent family households is to acknowledge them as their role in caregiving. So understand that they are also caregivers, they are also parents, they are involved in the child's life and they're important for the child. They provide these funds of knowledge. They're always with the child. They have a strong rapport and a strong connection with the child, that they know that teacher can use to help build that better connection and collaborate with them. Recognize child rearing difficulties and provide support. So understand again, these are older parents now that are taking care of a younger child, many years after they've done it. And it's going to be difficult for them from when they were raising their own children to now, the different child rearing strategies and how to raise children, and the conflict between how they raise their own children and how their children are raising their children. So being able to help them if they're having difficulties in child rearing, again, providing support because grandparents having to raise children is difficult. And also inclusion in the classroom and school culture. Invite them to the classroom to volunteer as well. Have them introduce themselves, who they are, what they do. Have them volunteer in the classroom or in school activities, so they also feel included, and the child that they're raising is also feeling included with their family dynamics and structure. The extended family structure refers to the living arrangement of groups of individuals whose relationship to each other extend beyond the nuclear family. So this is looking at families in living arrangement or homes that live with other individuals of their family that are not their parents or their siblings. So they're directly from their nuclear family. So examples of this could be living with aunts, uncles, cousins. Grandparents would also be considered as extended family, and other relatives or relatives' spouses as well. So some strengths that the extended family has are they're more multi-generational, which means there's an endless fund of knowledge. So you have many individuals that live in the households from different generations, passing on funds of knowledge, sharing that information with each other, comparing it to back when they were younger to what they are now, and how things have changed drastically. So that's a huge strength that extended families have, is that these multi-generational families um, provide a lot of these funds of knowledge. It's also seen that it's commonly found, these extended families are commonly found in Latinx, African American, Asian American, and Middle Eastern family cultures. So in the United States, we do not see high numbers or high rates of extended families living together. We're seeing a lot in these different affluent communities that seem to value more of the extended family value than and looking beyond just the nuclear family. So extended families provide resources for nurturing and parenting of children. So as the saying goes, it takes a village to raise a child. So with having extended family or living with the extended family, there is possibly always consistent childcare. There's different funds of knowledge coming in from different areas, from different people, from different experiences, that the child is now able to understand, comprehend, and learn from reliable family members in which they can trust. Um, Also, so more than one third of children in the United States live in extended families. So research and the census are showing that the U.S. families are about one third are living in extended families. So we're seeing a growing number in families here in the United States living with multiple people that is outside of the nuclear home, but that is nuclear family, but are still family related. So being aunts, uncles, or cousins, for a variety of reasons. Some challenges that extended families face are the source of conflict. So, living with many individuals can be difficult, and if there's a conflict, it may be difficult to solve and may cause a rift in between the family. Along with that, limited space that is shared among many people can be difficult and cause conflict. So, this can also be very challenging for these families. Some recommendations for working with these families for educators to keep in mind is to get to know the family. So provide at-home activities to share. So for them to share not just between the parents and siblings, but between cousins, aunts, and uncles. Understand how the child is living, who they're living with, who they're close with, who they play with, who they chat with, who they go to ask for homework to. So extend the invitation to the classroom and school events. So invite these families over um, to these events. If it's more child friendly or more geared for children, having them invite their younger cousins or siblings to come along with them. If it's more an adult event or information night, and bring more of the older siblings or the older family members that are more involved in the child's life in regards to education and making sure or they maintain their schooling and they're helping them with their homework as well. Get them involved in the classroom. So don't be afraid to share, to have them come in to either read up a story, share important cultural dishes and foods and stories with the classroom. It would provide a sense of belonging and inclusion for the child, as well as the family, for them to be able to share their own culture. So, queer and same sex family structures looks at the leading parent leading parent household being either the same sex or queer couple or queer parents. Historically, the term was used as same sex, which referred to parents that were the same sex or are the same sex, so female with female and male with male. Queer is the new adoptive term now because it's more inclusive, because it includes other individuals that do not fall under the traditional male and female label. So we're including also transgender individuals, non binary individuals um, that fall under the same category as queer parents or queer family structure. Some strengths of this family structure are the inclusivity of all family structures. So now we're moving away from the cis heterosexual couples that are married and have biological children to seeing these queer parents in which do not fit the definition of a nuclear family, which is cis heterosexual white male and female couple with biological children. Now we're seeing more adopted families, as we spoke about before, um, same-sex couples, and also these queer couples that are non-binary and or transgender can be. Queer families choose adoption over other means, so there is a higher number of queer couples or queer parents that choose adoption over any other means. And they're more accepting and open of same-sex marriage. So having these couples come in is opening and helps the conversation build and understanding build within the community. So some challenges that these family dynamics face are discrimination. So many people still have the closed-minded view of what your traditional family should look like between a male and female married couple with biological children. So they face a lot of discrimination. Along with the discrimination they face comes this fear of their child facing discrimination as well. There's research that, or there are studies that show that some children do face discrimination due to their parents, but mainly these queer families fear what their children will face due to their situation themselves and who they are. Another challenge that comes up often for these family structures is that they're seen as unfit parents, again, because they are don't fit your traditional definition and view of what the nuclear family was once quoted for. So a lot of institutions, when it coming to adoption, don't see them fit because they don't fit that narrative or they're not married. It's a lot harder for these individuals and parents to adopt children due to that. Some recommendations when working with these family dynamics is for self-reflection on personal bias, to make sure we're understanding where we're coming from, if we ourselves are putting any kind of bias on the family, our feelings towards it, and how we can work to better collaborate with these families to make sure they feel included and not discriminated against. Inclusivity paperwork and forms for parent information. This may be small and minute, but it's also very important, and it shows inclusivity and acceptance, as well as parents being seen and included. So moving away from your traditional mother or father name, or father information, parent or guardian titles would be best, and they're able to identify their legal or parental status as well. Along with this, including with these forms, is understanding and using the correct pronunciation and terminology. So, again, moving away from mother and father, it could be parent and guardian, having them identify if they do identify as male, female, or if they're non binary, or more specifically, to not probe as deeply, just ask for. These forms can also ask for pronouns, so if they prefer to go as Miss, Mrs., or none of those titles, depending on how they identify. So it'd be easier for teachers to make that communication and connection with them, and the families will be able to see that they are seen and accepted for using the correct pronouns. Another thing that we can do, recommended for educators, is to have inclusive holidays. So, going away from just Mother's Day or just Father's Day, Grandparents' Day or Parents' Day, different holidays in which all family types can be included. So that way children are able to still participate, and then and then families are also able to feel included and see that their child also thinks about them during the school day, during these holidays. Lastly, our last family structure dynamic is the adoptive family. So this is legal guardianship of a child, but they're not birth parents. So normally they're majority of the time they're not biologically related. They can be, so grandparents can adopt their children's children. Siblings can adopt their nieces and nephews, so long and so forth. Aunts and uncles can adopt different people that they're related to. But it's the term of legal guardianship over a child, normally with not the birth parent. In 2020 Census Bureau, about 1.5 million children under the age of 18 were adopted in 20 during that time. So some strengths of adopted families that we see is that can be found in any family structure. So any from the previous family structures that we discussed before. So included but not limited to blended families, grandparents, single family households, and everything we discussed before could be also an adoptive family. So as adoptive families tend to have multiple labels or multiple hats that they can wear, depending on their family structure, dynamic, and adoption as well. So again, they have unique dynamics. Seeing how they function, the backstory of how they came to be, and is very interesting and makes the dynamics very unique. Adoption is also very common here in the United States. Here within the United States and also from other countries, but it's also common, very common in the United States. Some challenges that they face are unexpected arrivals. A lot of the times they don't get a lot of information or a lot of time to prep for the child to arrive. which goes along with the other challenges mentioned, which is a language barrier and little to no information of the background of the child. So these children sometimes just get dropped in their lap vastly quickly, where they have no time to prep, get anything ready. They have very little information about the child, don't know about their developmental background, their history, if they have any learning disabilities, physical disabilities, mental disabilities, the family's history, if that could be genetic. It's hard for them to know all this information and know what the family is getting into or what they're receiving. Some recommendations for working with adoptive families is to avoid the stereotypes that people have of adoptive children. So automatically assuming that they were dropped off or just automatically given up by a parent or their mother because they didn't want them, not understanding the situation that they're in. So along with this would be to understand the family situation. So understand knowing not to probe or make the family uncomfortable, but to sit down and have like a better understanding of where they come from, what things that they would like to share about themselves and the child that would help educators with the child in the classroom and how they can collaborate together to ensure that the child's needs are met and their educational needs are also met. Sharing cultural origin. So if the child is not of the same ethnicity or race as the parents, sharing where they're from, cultural history, anything in which they can share from their background of their original home or previous families.